Hi there, and welcome to the Rejection Diaries Season 3. We're now on to Episode 3, which is all about the wait. My name is Stuart White. Today, we're going to be talking about what happens after we press send on our submissions to agents, to publishers, competition, whatever it happens to be. We talked a little bit about some of the strategies that we can use in season 1 after we've pressed send, but we're going to talk more specifically about some of the strategies that I've tried out, especially this time around in my querying journey, as we are following this particular querying journey live this time. So you've pressed send to your half a dozen, 15 agents, however many you have sent your work out to. So what do you do next? And this can be tough because I know that previously when I have submitted books, I've spent a lot of my time in the week or two after sending it waiting for an instant reply, hopeful that one of the agents might have had a peek at the inbox at some point and then sort of raced through the query, got to the end of the third chapter and said, I have to request this. And obviously, that's not a realistic or healthy attitude or approach to have. On one of my books, in my third book, I had quite a quick initial full response. It was within a day or two. And unfortunately, that has set up my expectations a little bit since then. And it's been hard to completely wipe that from my set of expectations after I press send. So for me anyway, this time around, I've been trying very hard to eliminate that expectation, to take it off the board. I've just said to myself, and it's come to fruition this as well. I've said to myself, it is a super busy time of the year. Agents are already overloaded. We know that their inboxes are tough to keep on top of at the best of times, let alone just now, and with the book fair season happening and on the horizon, depending on when you listen or watch this. So therefore, it's not realistic to think about it that way. And so I said to myself, well, I'm not going to get any quick requests this time. And of course, it's easier said than done. That mind over matter thing is, it's easy for me to say this right now as I'm speaking to a microphone and to all of you listening. But in reality, can we stop our brains from having those little thoughts? It's really, really difficult. Um, but I've got to say, I actually did over the last, what's it been, 5 weeks now since I sent those out. I have been very good and I've not been constantly on my email. I think, especially after those first few days, I almost forgot about it until some of the responses did come in. And we'll talk about that in a moment. So, yes, it's tempting to focus in the inbox. It is tempting to hope and to fantasize that it's going to be one of those dream stories that occasionally we hear authors tell, that, oh, the agent immediately requested the full, and updated the other agents, and they all requested the full, and I had 5 agents offer me within a week or two. And I actually know a couple of my close author friends have been in that situation, so I know what a first hand account of that is like, as someone is sort of narrating it for you, and how exciting and yeah, almost unreal that becomes for them, and for the other people that they're sharing it with. So yeah, it's hard not to have those thoughts circulating in your mind as you wait. You imagine that it's going to be like that for you, or you hope that it's going to be like that for you, but it's probably not. And as I say, I've been very good this time at making sure that has not been me. So what have I done differently in order to allow me to have that better mindset, to be much more healthy during the wait, which is what obviously this episode is all about? Well, first of all, I just stopped looking at the manuscript. So what I did was I sent out the 3 chapter synopsis and blah 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 out to everyone I was submitting it to, and because I submitted it to all the agents that I thought might like it in one go, rather than sort of doing it in batches, as some people suggest. It meant I was able to say, okay, I've formatted and set up a Word document that's Astra, Firestar, and Ripples of Time full, and it's sitting there waiting if anyone does request. So I don't need to look at this story again. It's done. It's the best job that I can do. It's in the best condition. I've edited it as well as I can, or as well as I could at that time. No doubt in a year or two, I'll think I could have done a better job. But as far as I'm concerned, it means I can then just go, right, that's it done. It's out my head now. There's not absolutely nothing else I can do about it, and I moved on, and I said, okay, that's it. That folder is now not getting touched unless someone else gets back in touch with me, and that is, I think, quite a not only effective strategy for stopping yourself refreshing things. It is also really good for mentally just cleaning that bit of your brain out, like, and saying, okay, that's it done. And in turn, that does reduce the expectations. It does um, quash those hopes and fantasies that you're going to have that exciting rush of agents getting in touch with you wanting your manuscript. So yeah, I think that worked well for me on this occasion, and has helped me throughout this first 5 weeks or so of the querying wait. Another thing that I set myself as a task to do during this time was to read more, and I have done a little bit more than usual. I've got to admit, I got COVID, and I've also been writing a new book, which I'll talk about in a minute, and so on. So I've actually probably not set aside as much time as I'd initially thought I would, but it definitely has helped. I've got more books on my Kindle and so on than I had before, and with the plan to obviously read all of them and so on. So that also helps, just moving on, reading something else. Because the other thing about reading is, as most of you already know, is as writers, is that it really sparks that creative fuel, and gets you thinking about, okay, that's given me an idea for this, or that's given me an idea for that, and it helps you to sort of move on to new ideas and new projects, which is very healthy at this particular stage. The third strategy, which is one of I embraced the last time I queried just a year ago, and has enabled me to have that other book written and edited and query ready within the year, was to write the wait. Now, I didn't write the wait quite as effectively last year as I would have liked to have done. However, I did enough that, I was so far into the book that I was definitely committed to finishing it, and to, to make doing the best job I could with it. This time around, I've been even more productive than I was previously, and that, as I say, has been, I think, the cornerstone of my ability to not think too much about the queries that are currently out there. I got quite excited about this idea when a few people said to me, out of the things I was thinking about, that it was the one that they thought was the most promising. So I went with it, and I already had a bit of an outline and so on, and I just started writing. And uh, to date, I'm at 38,000 words now, and about maybe about 50 to 60% of the way through the plot as well, which means that, come summer, hopefully I'll have finished the first draft, and that's probably around about the time where we'll be looking at sort of 12 weeks of waiting for query responses, and we can either say yay or nay and move on in terms of that. And that, I think, is good. It's healthy. It's a nice productive use of that time. They say, they call it, you write the way, and that's definitely something that has helped me so much this time. So if you are querying, either now or in the future, that's something to bear in mind. As you press send on all those queries, get the next thing going. Even if it's not something you end up finishing as your next book, even if you spend that time not necessarily writing a new novel, but coming up with ideas, plotting, outlining for your next book, then it's a productive use of the time. And you actually, when the rejections come in, it really does take the edge off it. It means that you say, okay, that's fine. Maybe that book's not the one for them, but I'm really excited about this thing I'm currently working on, and I'm just keen to get that finished, because maybe this will be the one that they do like. And I definitely, and this is where sometimes being too close to your own work is a thing. I definitely am more excited about the one I'm currently working on, and I feel like that happens every time. And it might not be the case that it is actually a subjectively better story, but I'm definitely excited about it, and it's definitely helped to take the edge off the weight and also the edge off any rejections that I've had since then. And the last thing, which is something I've also done this time, is to think about, okay, what can I do to improve my craft, to develop myself as a writer, to learn new skills that are going to be advantageous for a potential career in this industry? Because the way I think about it, and I think the way you should think about it yourself, is that if you want this to be a career, if you want to be published and so on, then you've got to be continually developing yourself professionally. As a school teacher, that's something that we have ingrained into us, and it's something that we a want to do, but also b have to do on a regular and ongoing basis. We have to fill out every year a list of all the different ways in which we've developed our teaching profession. And I think as a writer, although there isn't a maybe there's not the same checks, my school and the GTCS and so on check that I've been doing all of that professional development. Nobody's going to check it as a writer, but it's still something that I think is a valuable thing to do. At whatever stage you're at, whether you're reasonably new, or even if you've written a lot, like I have written a lot of novels and so on, you're still always learning. And I bet any published authors who are listening to this just now would agree and would be nodding and saying that they are also learning as they go through their career. So it's something that I don't think we should ever give up on. And as I say, I've signed up to this science fiction and fantasy course that Curtis Brown have just launched. It's a new one. So I think that starts in a couple of weeks, and I'm really looking forward to that. It's something else new. It's something to learn. I love learning. I've chosen to be a teacher. I run an organisation which is involved in uh, teaching writers how to become better, and therefore it's an ingrained part of my DNA. And doing this course is something that quite excites me, and it's actually again something I've been looking forward to so much that I've forgotten almost a little bit about the story I have out on Query at the moment. So it's done its job, and again it's one of the things that I suggest if you are sending your work out to then start looking forward to new things. How can you develop yourself? How can you improve your craft so that if it does come back with rejections, or even if it comes back with notes on how you could improve it, you've been spending that time improving yourself as a writer already, and you might actually be able to then identify the areas that the feedback has highlighted and improve that based upon the new things that you've learned and developed. So yeah, I've been working quite effectively over the last month to try and eradicate those thoughts of my queries out of my head. And one of the things that I've been doing as well on top of all of that is I've been looking beyond just this book. Now it's easy for us as writers to become really passionate about the book that we've written, or for it to become something that we love. And I've heard people say this is the book of my heart. This is blah 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 blah. In different ways to describe it. For me personally, I don't think that's a massively healthy attitude, towards a bit of work. I understand that there's a lot going into it, but for me, I think that just increases the emotional stakes of the outcome of your query with it. And obviously, if it goes well, then it's a great story. This is the book I really wanted to write, and I'm so glad that other people think so too, and they want to publish it, and that is really nice. But it also, as I say, just it causes a greater plummet when the rejections do come in for it. And ultimately, what the stories that we're writing, they're important to us, but for publishers, agents, and so on, they're just a product that they are going to take from you. Uh, Not take, they're going to buy from you so that then they can sell it on at a profit. and ultimately that's what it is. It's a product, and I think looking more like in that sort of business sense, and understanding the industry better and so on, for me anyway, has helped me to have a more healthy attitude towards the outcome of sending my work out, and it's less about me and my stories, and it's not a personal endorsement of my abilities or anything. It's simply about this product that I've produced. Is it going to sell to a lot of people? And that's the also the judgment that agents and publishers have to make. And is it going to make us a profit? Because that's what they're in business to do. And when you look at it like a product, I promise you, it just completely takes away the edge when someone says, "Yeah, it's not for me," because you think, "Well, that's fine." It's sort of like not quite like this maybe, but it's sort of like you're selling your car and you get people that come along and they'll look at the car and they'll say, "Nah, actually, it's not for me." You don't go into your house and cry afterwards, and ultimately, that's, I guess, how we have to look at our stories. Although maybe if you had built that car from scratch, and through your own ingenuity and hard labor and many hours, and through the craft and knowledge that you developed through a lot of years, then maybe you wouldn't be quite so chill when someone doesn't want your car. But yeah, I think the point is still a reasonably good one. Try not to sort of emotionally interlace everything within this story, because then if the story's rejected, you feel rejected as well, and I don't think that's a healthy place to be when it comes to querying. So, where am I at then? Well, I've obviously heard back from a few agents now. I think it might be four to this day, unless I've missed one, and they have just said no, it's not for me. A couple of them have said the same thing that I heard in my agent one-to-ones, and the same thing that I was told the last time I queried a book, which was that they don't see how they can place it. The sci-fi elements make it tricky because there are only a couple of commissioning editors out there for middle grade that are looking for sci-fi right now. So, unless it looks like something they're going to be able to sell, then they're probably not going to take you on, the agents, and so that's fine. And actually getting those kind of emails makes it feel a little bit less of a sting, because it's more about what can sell. It's the whole thing I talked about earlier on about it being a product. Can they sell that product to or place it here or there? And if there's not a huge demand in terms of editors, then it's going to be obviously a harder sell, and something that they're going to struggle with. So, and that's been fine. I've actually taken those rejections not too bad at all this time around. And the other thing as well is I've tried to keep emotionally balanced in my responses. So I have taken those rejections well, but when I got a full manuscript request last week, and it's quite a nice email to receive, obviously, and I was happy, but I also had to make sure I just kept it all in check a little bit and said, okay, that's great news, but this has happened to me a lot before. Agents are probably requesting quite a few fools, not loads, but a few. And I would say of those that they request, they're definitely not taking them all on, and probably not even taking on some or most of them. So it's something you have to say, okay, that's good, but don't necessarily get too excited about. And so, yeah, we'll see what comes of that. I'll update you once I get the outcome from that particular person. But the next thing I was going to talk about was, what do you do in that situation? Because I get this question a lot from Right Mentor writers, who they get a request from an agent and they're like, so what do I do now? What's the protocol? What's the etiquette? Do I let other people know, or do I say nothing, or whatever? And I'll tell you a little bit about what I do in that particular situation, and then you can obviously make up your own mind. There's no set way to respond to this. It's going to vary based upon what you prefer to do. Now, for me, I have found with my previous querying attempts that when I get a request for a full, other agents want to know about it. Now, there will be exceptions to that. Some agents won't want you to update them when you get a request for a full. but a lot of them state on their website that they do want that, and a number of them have actually said that to me in their emails as well, that it's good to get that update. And the reason for that is, well, it's multitude, but they don't have enough time to read their submissions in a timely way. So if you don't update them that someone else has the full, and then that person who requested the full offers you representation, you're really not giving the other agents that much of advanced warning and time to then A, read your full, and then B, consider whether they want to represent you or not. And often, and this is my experience as well, is when you try and sort of rush an agent and sort of suggest, like the one time I accepted representation, I said to the other agents, so you've got 2 weeks, and some of them just simply said, well, 2 weeks isn't isn't enough time, just with the way things are, and obviously the priority being to their existing clients and so on, and so that automatically knocks out a number of agents who you could have been keen to work with. So I do update all of the agents who still have my manuscript and haven't responded yet, just to let them know. And my experience is that not all of them respond, but some of them do and are very appreciative of that. And they're thankful that you've said that, because it then gives them an opportunity to, I guess, sort of jump it up their list a little bit and look at it in a more timely way, so that if there are any further progressions, they've got an opportunity to read it, and maybe to make you a counter offer if someone else offers to you first. And so I think that it's a mutually beneficial approach to let them know. I've seen this on Twitter as well, that people have different opinions about this. I've seen someone ask on there and get responses like, "No, do not contact an agent under any circumstances, blah 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 blah, unless you have an offer of representation." And I remember I sort of replied to that and said, well, that's not necessarily always the case for everyone, and so on. You have to do it in a case by case scenario, and also what you're comfortable with as an author as well. I think the point I made earlier on is one to consider here, and remember, this is a business, and it's a product that you're looking for that agent to sell to a publisher, and so you should approach it in a sort of business like manner, and that means that you want to maximize the chances that someone's going to look at your product and be to maybe like that product, and to give it the the full opportunity for them to review it and see if it's something that they want to take on. So I can't necessarily see too many downsides to it. As I say, anyone who maybe doesn't want me to do that, no one's ever emailed back to suggest that me updating them on the full has affected my chances with them or anything anyway. But all that said, you've got to obviously do what you feel most comfortable with as a writer, as a person, and not necessarily just take my advice as the way to go. And one of the things to do as well, and I always do this when I'm looking up the agents that I'm possibly going to query to, is to look and see what they say you should do in that situation. Maybe about half of the agents that I queried this time had that in their submission instructions, to let them know if there was any movement or any requests. So, if you have a look, then that'll obviously help you when that time comes for you, hopefully. So yeah, all of this basically takes us up to date in terms of my own querying journey, and the way that I've approached and managed the wait that occurs in between. It's it is really difficult. It's different for every single one of us. Some of you might prefer to do that whole approach where you send two or three out at a time and you wait and so on, and you tweak your manuscript in between, and that's fine. All power to you if that is the approach that you want to take. As I say, I've outlined the pros and cons of the way I do it. The biggest pro, I think, being that I've already moved on. I'm on to the next book. If something comes to this one, great. If not, then my head's already in a different space. And I think from a mental health point of view, that is a huge weight off my mind to be able to do that. And if you go down the other approach, you're sitting there for 6 months, a year, maybe a year and a half with the same book that maybe just isn't, no matter what you do to it, no matter how much editing you do to it, or odd little trinkets of feedback that you might get from agents, is it really going to make the difference? And there's one case in 100 where someone says, "Oh, that approach worked for me," but then there are all the other people who have effectively wasted a year and a half querying when they could have been going on to the next book, and their next book might be the one that does the job for them. So it's a difficult one, and it's all nuance and balance and down to personal preference as well. I don't think that you should necessarily just go with whatever I'm suggesting. I'm just outlining why that is my preferred approach. And yeah, so to summarize the different things to consider during the wait. So this is after you press send to the agents. First thing to consider is to take a break. Take a wee bit of space away from your manuscript if you can. If you're the kind of person that's sending it out to all the agents at once, it's much easier to do this. Just get the full ready in case anyone requests it, and then you can close down that folder and move on. Really healthy, really good for you to do that. Reading more in your genre and your age category, trying to find new inspiration for new ideas from the books that you read. Number three, write the wait. Writing the wait is, for me anyway, has been a revelation in terms of managing the time between press and send and hearing back from them. Almost look at it like a challenge. How much of this book can I write before the 12 weeks are up? And I've either heard back no from agents, or it's expired beyond their wait period that they suggest that you have for them. And yeah, as I say, I look at it a bit like a challenge. I managed to get just under 40,000 words this time, with the hope that I can get a good way through it by the summer when the 12 weeks for my queries expires. And the last one, which I think is especially good for long term development if you're looking at a career in writing, and that is to maybe try a new course, or to develop another skill, or to just learn in whatever way you can. The courses are great, but they cost money, and not everyone is able to pay for those. One thing I would say is, if money is a barrier, then do check out. Most courses offer some sort of reduction or scholarships, whatever. There, within most organisations, there'll be at least one thing that they're offering where they will look at helping out people with costs. So do look for that with courses that you do. But courses is just one way of developing your craft and your skills. There are so many other ways. I mean, I just devour craft books. I quite like downloading a Kindle version of a craft book for £1, £2, £3, whatever it is, and I absolutely adore reading those. I enjoy learning so much, and as I say, if I treat this a bit like professional development that I undergo as a teacher, then and approach it with the same level of professionalism and diligence and so on, then I'm hopeful that will translate into development as a writer. And when I say this, I don't just mean as well writing craft. I mean, like, there are a lot of other areas within writing that you can learn more about that are going to help you ultimately throughout your career and so on. So it's well worth spending time while you're waiting anyway to hear the outcome, learning and developing new skills and areas to help you with your writing. So that's it for episode 3 of Rejection Diaries Season 3. I am Stuart White, and I will see you next time.